So say you found a skeleton. How would you tell if it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
This is our 500th episode thing.
Yay!
Yay. Now, here's the
We
thing.
did it.
Any of you who were here last time will know that my connection via OBS was, well, to put it mildly, extremely bad. I have made a few changes, and it is better, but it is not where I want it yet. So I am going to be doing things like I'm experimenting with other broadcasting software, stuff like that, right? There's a bunch of stuff that I'm looking at doing. I don't know exactly what it is that will fix it. I don't know why it's become such a big problem just recently. Also, I just realized I didn't open up the thing that will let us do drink encounters, because we are going to do drinks. We're going to do some drinks today for Ken
Yay.
Wheeler. Ken Wheeler will have the same drink things, although I don't know how much it will come up with Ken, because he's not a creationist, and these were definitely designed for creationists. Yeah, Smitty, so it's not my overall internet. It's the connection between specifically me and the YouTube server. Actual internet problem. My internet speed is fine. My internet connection is very stable. My connection
Download and upload right now, really fast,
Yep.
while you're streaming to YouTube.
Yep.
But not to YouTube apparently. So
so there is one thing between the ISP and YouTube that may go away at some point. In the meantime, I'm going to keep working on different solutions. That being said, we're going to buffer. We're going to buffer less, in part because I told OBS, hey, reconnect every second, not every 10 seconds, which apparently was what I had it set to. So for those of you who don't know, our drinking rules are basically we take a drink whenever the person we're going to talk about says something too stupid, whenever they get something right that they're not just quoting, whenever they tell a joke that doesn't land, whenever... Oh!
I heard that.
There's a Godzilla, which I don't think you guys heard, because I'm not sure. But,
I also see a super chat with Malcolm in it. Although it didn't quite work right.
for some reason, I don't know. Yeah, that is a Mothra super chat, so we're going to drink for it. That's from Guptu for $2, who says Mothra with a party emoji. Also, we have Jason Kinnaman, who's been a member for 10 months at the Tetrapod level, who says, happy 508K. Thank you very much. So we'll also tell jokes. Now, this doesn't come up much with this guy, but like if the creationist talks about like the National Socialist German Workers' Party, stuff like that, or tell stories that didn't happen, we'll take drink for that. But also, one of the ways that you guys can make us drink is by doing what Guptu3 did and sending a super chat with one of the emojis, Godzilla and King Ghidorah. So, yeah, those are the channel emojis just for members. So that's Mothra and Godzilla. Also, if anyone super chats anything to the effect that AIG are a bag of dicks, we take a drink for that, and that is because I don't think Ken Wheeler, that his fans are, shall we say, somewhat defensive. So I'm sure that some of them will be coming by. Also, DM Wing for $2 sends a high five emoji and some money, so thank you very much. All right. The idea is we're going to go through this. It's a 16, almost, we're going to do about an hour or so of AMA, and there will probably be an intermission somewhere in there. So, Vince, are you ready?
I think I am ready, but I will say this. I know a lot about this guy. I know his name is Ken Wheeler, and the word physics.
Yeah.
Something to do with physics.
All right, well,
I guess that's all I know about him, so maybe I don't know very much.
This video is called Metaphysics of Space. What is space?
This should be baffling.
Okay, I agree. Here we go.
I expect this to be very dumb, and we'll see.
Greetings.
Greetings.
I know a lot of people think I keep wearing the same shirt all the time. Actually,
I've never thought that before.
Yeah, I haven't either.
That's so weird.
It's not something I've ever thought about, is what shirts Ken Wheeler is wearing.
Or not.
I believe him.
That sounds very believable.
You know what?
I'm going to drink for having him tell the truth.
Yeah, tell him the truth there, you're getting something right. There we go.
Even though I can't prove it, I'm willing to accept that as truth.
Oh my goodness, it's another Godzilla drink moment, so we'll Godzilla. I'm not sure if that's actually coming through, by the way.
It is for me.
Well, that's good. Guys, on YouTube, if you can hear the Godzilla when it comes through and I say there's a Godzilla, let me know. Because if you can't, then I'm going to have to start doing the manual Godzilla sound on my computer.
It's the rare time it's not too loud or too quiet.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Keep it simple. Also, too, helps with automatic color balance, which I...
Vandeli1998, who's been almost ready to get that Dapper logo next to his name. Congrats on 500 videos. Here's to 500 more. My random 326 episode of Talking Time with Caffeine, Venerable Bead, is this Saturday at 1 p.m. EDT, and we'll be talking about Anglo-Saxons. Thank you very much, Vandeli1998. Here we go.
I could actually turn off. I've actually spent a lot of time... Yeah, the irony. Spent a lot of time thinking about time.
That was a joke that didn't land.
I think it was a psychotic laugh.
He thought it was a joke.
Time. And space. Of course, time doesn't exist. It's only a measure. And
only a measure. Okay.
Yeah, you want to talk about that, or?
I mean, you could say time is an illusion, maybe.
Well,
like, do you notice how time passes when you're asleep? Not the same as when you're awake.
Here's something.
But I don't know if that means time doesn't exist. It's just a measure.
Well, here's something.
That doesn't make sense.
I think if you can measure it, that means there's a really good chance that it exists. In fact, I would say that would be pretty conclusive evidence that it exists.
I'm confused by using the word measure as a noun there, as the object of whatever is.
Yeah, as a measure. So like,
will change between two events.
Sure.
Beyond just space. It's a weird way to phrase it, but.
The one thing that Nikola Tesla.
Who's that?
It's the cousin of Nikola Tesla.
Let's see what happens actually if I just pull up an extra Google and what comes up. Did you mean Nikola Tesla? Let's try Nicholas with just a K.
Brought up Nikola Tesla.
All right. Well, maybe it's probably just him misspeaking, right? It's fine.
With really cool haircut, I gotta say. Anyway.
Himself railed against vociferously, nearly foamed at the mouth about, was the idea of space being substantial. A so-called science, i.e. relativity and quantum, has reified space as something.
I mean, once again, because you can measure it, that kind of makes it something, right? If I can measure the distance between two things, that means there's space between them. If there weren't space between them, I couldn't measure that distance. So, like, yeah.
Plus, it has its own vacuum energy.
Yeah,
which is measurable.
Right.
Which is weird to me, but it is.
The fact of the matter, place a universal medium.
I knew it. As soon as he said this is an undeniable fact, he was going to say something absurd.
So
I just didn't think it would be that soon.
the ether. So there's a couple things. One is I highly recommend everyone to just like pause this video for like 30 seconds to a minute and then just come back to it, because there's gonna be some buffering. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you.
But if you pause and then unpause, just never see the buffering.
All right. Hoop23 for $2 says if he wears a Santa hat, he's Saint Nicholas Tesla. Nice. So Ben, do you want to tell people what the ether? So light has wavelengths. Light has it scatters, it diffracts, it does all the things that waves do, right? So what is it vibrating if light is a vibration? Because remember, light's vibration, waves are vibrations. Well, no one had a good answer. Substance that pervaded the universe that was called the luminiferous ether. A number of experiments were conducted to try to measure so-called etheric wind, because as we all know, the Earth isn't stationary. So if the Earth is moving, and the ether isn't just locked to Earth, which seems unlikely at some measurable speed, which means that if you point light in different directions and you have a sensitive enough device, you should be able to detect differences in the speed of light in different directions.
Guess what?
Can't.
It was the same speed.
Yeah. This is most famously determined in an experiment called Airy's failure, where some interferometers were used to determine whether or not light was going the same speed in directions orthogonal to each other. Turns out, detect any etheric wind. Now, this was a big mystery until there is no ether. The speed of light is constant for all observers in all directions. then their field and light being an excitation of that field and whatnot. So proposing the ether at this point is not too far off from proposing a flat Earth.
Yeah. The medium for sound, of course, is nitrogen and oxygen.
Okay, we're going to take a drink for that.
Not underwater.
So yeah, sound can go through basically any material that's dense enough. It can go through gases, it can go through solids, liquids, plasmas, made above any kinds of chemicals. So, yeah, no. Sound isn't just restricted to oxygen and nitrogen. I think that's just him trying to impress you with the fact that he knows what two biggest constituents of the atmosphere are, which, like, hey,
Right.
that's not impressive.
He's not wrong.
I mean, yeah, true.
I'll drink to it because it's a true statement.
Sound's not an emission.
You don't have to
doesn't
drink to it.
I won't.
A speed. Same is true of light. Nikola Tesla said light is nothing other than a sound wave in the ether.
Okay, that's cool, but guess what? Nikola Tesla saying something doesn't make it right. It's not true. Also, Tiktaalik, who's been a member for 4 months, says Ether was the best Minecraft mod. I've never played it, but you may well be right. Alright, here we go.
It's not an emission. It doesn't have a speed. It's a disturbance of the medium. The same is true.
Wait, you can emit sound, and speed has a sound. So even if it were an excitation of the etheric medium, it would still be an emission with speed.
Has to propagate.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Can't happen instantaneously.
take a drink for that being an.
There's a speed of causality.
Of space.
And
When you remove the ether, you have to. The system not only becomes ridiculous, it becomes absolutely insanely impossible. So this is
What he means by that is it becomes insanely unintuitive to him. That's what that means. That means I, Ken Wheeler, can't understand it, so I don't like it. Well, that's cool.
I thought he was just going to start speaking only in adverbs. Because I'm okay with that.
what relativity has done. I'm going to give you a couple quotes from Tesla and talk about what space.
Okay, it's cool that you're going to give Tesla quotes, but remember, those don't mean anything unless they're backed up with evidence. And Tesla was wrong about some things.
What?
Yeah.
Space is according to.
Okay, ancient metaphysicians also aren't right for being ancient metaphysicians. Once again, their statements need to be backed up with evidence.
Say the presence of large bodies.
Space is only nothing in some ideas, right? Like we pointed out, it has its own vacuum energy. So you can actually think of it in terms of vacuum energy between different things. Like, that's a thing, right?
That's
for
what
one.
it is.
Oh, and we have a super chat from Vandalia 1998. 1 second. Vandalia 1998 says, just want to say a quick farewell to Star Trek death this week. Another of the original seven longer with us. She was pretty great. I mean, Uhura was actually was suffering from some pretty severe problems from her aging. She was still making it to conventions and meeting with fans, and she inspired a lot of people. And yeah, she'll be missed.
Yep.
Anyway, here we go.
Refuse to subscribe to such a view. Thing of ignorant, whom Tesla said wraps all these errors and fallacies and clothes them distant. In other words, he's basically saying the.
So, I mean, again, a thing that's true.
Ether is the interlocutor, or the medium for action and reaction. It follows of the supposed.
Drink. So.
I did not know Tesla was this dumb about some things.
So yeah, that's the thing, right? So Tesla has.
Or was this the prevailing wisdom of the time? Because I don't honestly remember
It wasn't.
the exact
So
time he was
here's the thing about
in the 1800s.
Here's the thing about Tesla, right? Tesla was really great at a lot of things. Like, he was really good at figuring out someone and lots of stuff like that. However, he wasn't a god, and in fact, he was quite wrong about a lot of things. But unfortunately, there seems to have been like a posthumous cult of personality that's developed around him on the internet in the last like couple decades or so, where it's just like Tesla was right about everything. Now, a lot of this is in reaction to for inventions that one of his employees did. Yeah.
I did not know that.
There was also the time that he, in competing with Tesla, he decided to kill an elephant with direct current to show that direct current was dangerous. Of course, you could also just as easily kill it.
Easier. You could do it easier.
Yeah.
But I did know that, and I did know he was kind of scummy.
Yeah. So it is valid to reassess. Do now.
Like, now people are
right.
Yeah, and they've come around.
But the thing is,
about Christopher Columbus too.
Yeah. But the thing is that because Edison famously had a rival in Tesla, there has also been a lionizing of Tesla, basically just because he was an opponent of Edison. But that doesn't actually make him right. For instance, like his wireless power idea, yeah, that's also pretty dangerous. That's really not a good idea. His direct current power distribution, it's actually a worse idea. It's harder to generate, it's harder to maintain, it's worse for the environment. It's not a good idea. If you've ever worked with electrical generators and motors, talk to someone about direct current motors. They are a pain. No one likes them for good reason. Alternating current anyway. So alternating currents, motors, and generators are cleaner, they're safer. It's just a better way to do it. But yeah, Tesla was wrong about a lot of stuff.
I think making the conversion from alternating current to direct current happens usually like at the guitar pedal level.
Yeah, it's at the
plug it into your wall outlet.
It's at the user device level. Pedal. Yeah, usually devices,
which is always going to be a guitar pedal.
Well, right? Devices tend to have rectifiers,
or an amplifier,
which take the AC signal and turn it into a like an unsteady DC, or some of them will actually smooth it out to a steady DC signal. So yeah, and also as Sir Equinox points out, yeah, Tesla appeals to crackpots.
It's nothing. And it is no different ultimately than a shadow. Now, shadow is a noun in the dictionary, and we all think a shadow is something.
Space is no different. That's got to be like a song lyric or something.
The Ken Wheeler's word salad song.
A shadow is not something. A shadow is an absence of something. You could say shadow, and many science fiction and fantasy things will talk about thesis and antithesis.
So Hegelian dialectic? Yeah, I guess that's a thing that pops up a lot.
I too have heard of a thesaurus.
Have you heard about the Hegelian dialectic?
No, I have not.
So
I mean, wait, no. Perhaps I should have done that. Dang it.
So I'll try to sum up the Hegelian dialectic in a absurdly simplified way. So the idea is that arguments themselves create a construct of is the thesis. But they, by necessity, in reaction to this, create a counter movement, which is the antithesis or antithesis, right? This has been used to talk about, like, Marxist historians like to use it to talk about things like the transition from, like, feudalism to capitalism to eventually some kind of socialism. Okay. And the idea is that when the antithesis and the thesis create a new synthesis of both, which then becomes the new thesis to which a new antithesis will arise. I'm not sure how that applies to relativity, which is one of the best supported theories in all of science. It's second, basically, only like the standard theory of, or the standard model.
Science?
Yeah, well.
I prefer Nicholas Tesla's.
Yes. All right, so here we go.
And talk about being the shadow being the opposite of light. Shadow is never the opposite of light. Shadow, of course, is the absence of light. It's privation.
I mean, we'll take a drink. It is true that shadows are the relative absence of light.
Physics and true metaphysics, shadow is not a thing at all. Neither is space. Space is ether rarefaction. Space is
the final frontier, okay?
Yeah.
I heard it, and then I heard it another time.
So the thing is, space, there's a few ways you can define space, right? Like, you can say it's the thing measured when measuring distance. That's if you can measure something, then it's a thing that exists. Otherwise, you couldn't measure it reliably. So space is that thing which length measures, which distance measures. including, when you do it like, square meters or cubic meters or something like that. Like, you're still measuring space. You might be doing it in more than one dimension, but it's still fun. There's something there. Also, if space can't bend, then how come we can measure it to bend? Like, we have lots of pictures of things like gravitational lensing. We have effects of time dilation from Einsteinian space-time bending, right? Yeah, GPS satellites have to keep track of this. So, yeah. And like I said, guys, I recommend if the buffering gets too much, like, pause the video for 15 seconds to a minute. Come back. It is better than last time by actually a fair bit. So you can imagine how bad last time was.
The shadow of ether. It is not substantial. It is not consubstantial. It has neither mass nor.
What does he mean by consubstantiality of the Godhead? And by extension, Christology. I don't either, because Ken Wheeler is pretty skeptical of Christianity. So of extreme words.
Magnitude, the ether by definition, of course, cannot be consubstantial, nor could it be substantial.
You can't say consubstantial. You have to say consubstantial with, right? Consubstantial means having the same substance. Why in Christian theology, you can have statements like the Son is consubstantial with the Father. That with the Father isn't there for funsies. It's because otherwise the word consubstantial doesn't mean anything. Right? It's like
your sentence is incomplete, sir.
It's like saying, hey,
try again.
Hey, Bent, are you together? What is it? What
does
that mean?
Reminds me of a joke my friend from church made up. What's the difference between a telephone pole?
Exactly. There needs to be an and what?
And it was funny. I laughed.
Yeah, so just saying the ether isn't consubstantial it literally doesn't mean anything. So we're gonna take a drink for how silly that is. Have more than one person measure the same distance. See if
that's impossible.
I know, right? Tiktaalik for 100 Argentinian pesos says saying Tesla was very smart but had some bad/dangerous ideas is like the actual Tesla company. Yes. Some great ideas, but also refusing to use LiDAR so the autopilot crashes into stationary objects. Yeah, look, someday I should go on a whole why Musk is a grifter and also an asshole rant. He's a really big both of those. Alright, well, anyway, what I was saying about objectivity, right? Basically, objectively existing. That means that when multiple observers measure it, they will all get the same value, or within a margin of error, right? Because, if I'm measuring it with a ruler marked off in kilometers, and, Bent is using a ruler marked off in millimeters, he's going to get a more exact answer than I am. But that's fine. Within the margin of errors, you all get the same result. That's objective. To get the same results for. So it is objective in the strictest way possible.
The ether, by definition, true definition of pure energy, for example, of course, would not be substantial.
Energy is not substantial.
What does that mean? There's no substance to it?
I guess, but then that would just beg the question of what does he mean by substance? Like, is he talking about, like,
whatever he
Aristotelian
means, he'd
logic?
be wrong about it.
Well,
no.
See, this thing, like, he just bringing in all of these philosophical concepts from all over the place. Like, he'll grab a little
thesaurus.
He'll grab a little word from, like, Christian theology and then relate it to the admittedly Indian mysticism and be like, oh, see? And then he'll just make things up like, yeah, sure, number. It's like, no, they explicitly did. That was the whole point. But, okay.
Another term, including the word field, that no branch of science has ever defined, the word energy.
Actually, field is well defined, right? So a field is simply anything that can take a value at each point, may or may not include a vector, depending on whether or not it's a scalar field or a vector field. So I know I've gone over this before, right? But like you can have a temperature field in, say, your house, which means temperature is at that point. That is the temperature, and you could build a whole 3D map of all the points in your house and say, this is what the temperature value is at each of these points. That's a thing you can do. It's fine. And a vector field would have a direction, right? So like you could do an airflow field. You could do the velocity of air in your house. It's going to have a speed value, but also a direction that the air is flowing. That's a vector field. Fields aren't mysterious magical things. It's just the collection of all the points and the value for whatever it is you're measuring. So for instance, in the electromagnetic field, it's how much electromagnetic charge is in each location. And electromagnetically charged particles correspond to excitations of that field. This isn't like it's really, you know, this is fairly advanced physics, but it's also not like incomprehensible.
They can't. That's not my opinion that they never defined it. They'll say, energy's ability to do work.
That is literally a definition. You don't have to like it. I'm just gonna take it.
Not that he doesn't like it, he just thinks people speak that way when they define it for no reason.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's it.
It's not mocking. It's
Of something once it has occurred, but that doesn't actually define energy. So
What has occurred? The ability to do work doesn't describe anything that has already occurred.
potential energy hasn't occurred. It's potential energy. It's quite fundamental.
once again, I tell you, not my opinion. In fact, there's no branch of science has actually ever defined the term energy.
I mean, except that you gave a definition for it, so okay.
Wow. Okay, I have to drink for. That's one of what's it actually called? When it's so stupid that you want to rip your brain cells out.
Yeah, okay, we'll drink for that.
The memory cells from having heard that.
Chaos.
Wait, what? Did he say shadow is...
Shadow. I heard him say a shadow is the term chaos.
We're gonna rewind just a little bit. See if we can hear this.
Chaos. Chaos.
Something chaos. I don't... let's hear him out, and maybe it'll make more sense.
This word in ancient Sanskrit and also
Oh, we're going into Sanskrit.
to Pali or
Ancient
Ka.
Sanskrit.
All Sanskrit is ancient. It's like saying...
Yeah, but this one is ancient
Okay.
Sanskrit.
It's like saying ancient
just said it.
Sumerian. Yeah, it's all ancient.
Well, that's not what he said, though.
Okay.
Word is denoting zero. Zero, of course, is a placeholder.
What? No, it's a number. It's a
You're
value.
a placeholder. I'm calling you out, sir.
I currently have 0 pennies on me. Now, then you get into things like negative. Like, if I had...
He's in my hand.
Can't have negative 0.
Why not?
0 is neither negative nor positive. Bro.
Ooh.
Take that. Go to math jail. Oh,
Like that placeholder.
yeah.
In English and in Western language, 1 and 0 are numbers.
No. Those are numerals that refer to numbers. So those are. I mean,
1 and 0.
the numbers.
That's what I just saw.
There are numbers in every language that has speakers in places that don't have a 0 concept. But 1 and 0 aren't just numbers in certain languages.
In ancient Greek and in ancient metaphysics, 0
Bro.
numbers at all. 1 is
No. So the ancient Greeks had a numeral system that worked similarly to Roman numerals. That's it. That's all it takes.
the principle.
So this person is literally so wrong that I can't even tell what his sentences are because you're pausing mid-sentence like 4 times to rebut things.
It's because almost...
So there's at least 4 things wrong per sentence.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm here.
And 0 is a
It's
placeholder.
kinda
So 0 and 1
distracting.
at either end of the spectrum. They're actually both at the same end of the spectrum, but we don't need it. Are not numbers at all. And this is true of the term K or Ka. And
1 are ether. They're not numbered.
That could be. Yeah, maybe they're either.
Because they're the same thing.
Or maybe they're energy. We haven't
D.
defined energy.
No one has, apparently.
Yeah.
we have in the Greek chaos or chasm.
Those are not the same word. Right? So... Okay. Let's bring up...
Just
Yeah.
you might have issues in your brain.
So, chaos in ancient Greek, which is chi, alpha, omicron, sigma, So let's check the etymology of chasm. Oh, look, it comes from the Greek chasma that goes then into Latin chasma, which ends up in English as chasm. So no, those aren't the same words. They're not even really very closely related at all, as far as I can tell.
Just a dictionary.
I mean, I checked etymologies. Yeah, like this is pretty basic stuff. You can just check this stuff.
We're not talking about matter, we're talking about the ether. So the ether is one, but of course it's the unmanifest one.
So if it's
What is
one,
that?
then it's also zero, because those are the
Oh.
same, which means if it's zero, it doesn't exist. I finally agree with you. The ether doesn't exist.
Hooray! We'll take a drink for him getting something right, and also so stupid. Yeah.
This is the reason why the first 2 digits of the Fibonacci sequence are 1.
See, fun fact, you can start the Fibonacci sequence with 0 and 1, and you still get the same sequence after that. You can go 0, 1, which goes to 1, and then you get 1, 1, so 2, then 3, then 5, 8. Yeah, it keeps going the same.
I actually thought it officially started at 0, but I don't know.
Well, the thing is,
Doesn't matter.
if you start at any 2
When
numbers...
I first heard it on MathNet on PBS, I heard it was 1, 1, 2, 3, and then the bird said 5, Eureka. That's how they did it on the show.
And 1. Numbers that don't appear in the Fibonacci sequence, of course, are 0.
Unless you do want it to start with 0, in which case it does appear, because you can just do that. It doesn't change the sequence at all, except that it starts with a 0.
Yeah, and the number 4.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot of other numbers that also don't appear in the Fibonacci sequence, like pi. I don't know. The natural number isn't there. I isn't there. I mean...
Like at one point, all right. Anyway. Yeah.
4 is only a measure, meaning time. And the only number absent
4
from the
means
first
time.
5 digits
That
of Fibonacci.
means
Just taking
what,
it.
1 means length, 2 means width, 3 means height, 4 means time. Got it. This guy makes perfect sense.
It's totally comprehensible.
What you need to do is consume as much THC as I have, and it'll make sense.
I don't think this guy's on THC. I think he's doing some heavy mushrooms.
No, I think he might actually need to see a neurologist.
Yeah, that's possible.
I'm not medical advice, but
Go to see...
sometimes when brains go like, start doing that, it could be medical. It could be.
Look, saying go see a doctor isn't what I would consider, like, inappropriate medical advice. That's like saying, hey, go get real medical advice.
Being cautious. I'm just being cautious.
Yeah.
I'd rather be overly cautious than not cautious enough. 4's on that number in the Fibonacci sequence. Does that count though, or does he mean the number 4 because it skips 4?
I think he means
1,
the number
1, 2,
4.
3, 5. And then there's no 6. There's no 7.
Number 4. This is, of course, the reason why the word 4 in ancient Asian languages means death, because
So let's see. Ancient Asian languages. So let's pick... actually, first we're going to do like a CC. Okay, so we're going to look up 4. All right, so what is 4? Translate that for me. 4. Katrava. Okay.
It doesn't translate to time. I'm going to be very disappointed.
It does not translate to time. It does translate to death.
Feel misled.
No. Death is Avatra. Okay, well, that's okay. Let's try, like, Mandarin or something, right? Now, you're going to have to forgive my pronunciation because I don't know any of these.
I'll think about it.
So, 4. C. Okay. What about death? C Wang. Well, I mean, C is in there, so, But let's try Korean, right? That's a Asian language, so death 4. Okay. But that's not the same word at all. Let's see. What's another good one? We'll try death.
You do Klingon.
Scythe in. Okay.
under the yoke of time is subject to death necessitatively, because if something has a beginning in time, necessitatively it has an end in time. Space, of course.
Full citation needed, which apparently isn't running. Thanks, OBS.
OBS.
Doing it again.
You need to get grounded or something. Oh wait, there it is.
Seriously, yeah, it worked that time. All right.
Literally samsara. I don't know if you're familiar with the word samsara.
I'm familiar with the word samsara. Ben, are you familiar with the word samsara?
Yeah, I've played some Talos Principle.
Okay, but are you familiar with it in terms of its as a concept.
Why don't you explain for the audience, just in case?
So samsara is the cycle of rebirth, right? In Brahmic religions, which includes like Hinduism broadly, Jainism, Buddhism. Now, the idea of terming these religions in like the European sense is a little weird because they fall into some other categories and aren't often conceptualized. Samsara is usually, in most of the Brahmic religions, the thing that you are trying to escape from. So there is going to be this cycle of birth and rebirth, and the idea is that throughout this cycle, we're going to somehow reach enlightenment, whether it be by unity with a god, whether it be by escaping your desired maximum amount of non-violence and peacefulness and avoiding harm to any other beings in Jainism. Eventually, you then escape this. So that's what samsara is. Let's see what Ken Wheeler thinks it is.
Most people are. It comes from the word sams, too, a prefixual, and sarate. It literally means to go round and round. So,
I mean, that does sound right. I'm not.
And of course, India didn't exist back then.
I mean, the landmass we now call India sure did.
We're talking about the teachings of the Scythians of the ancient.
No,
Were you there?
no, hold on. The Scythians and the Indians are not the same group of people. We're taking a drink for that one.
Can't even.
Nagata Valley, whether it be the Upanishads, the Vedas,
Which were not made by Scythians.
or even the Nikayas. There is Du space and there is Ka space.
He's speaking in
Du-
tongues.
I think he's trying to speak Sanskrit, and I assume he's not doing well, but I don't actually know.
Maybe he isn't.
Look, man,
But
if you want to
I
describe
don't know.
how space works in science, you have to use the Vedas
Sanskrit, I get it.
from Sanskrit. Yeah, the Sanskrit Vedas. It's very important. Look, you need to know what Kali and Vishnu
Obviously.
think. Remember when the
Nicholas,
Indian
yes.
government sent a statue of a Hindu god to CERN?
I don't, but
Yeah,
he might.
they did because, I mean, they actually did it as a sign of goodwill in terms of this international people don't want to talk about. They actually sent it because it's physically impossible to research physics without the Hindu gods.
transliterated,
Crazy talk.
translated literally means suffering, but it doesn't mean, conventional suffering.
No, because that's not convenient for Ken. There's going to be some other version of what kind of suffering we're talking about, because that makes it easier for Ken to spin his nonsense.
And sukha, it would be no different than at the axis point of a clock traveling outward to where time increases and speed increases will be dukkha.
Do you understand any of that?
That's not how clocks work.
No, not as far as I can tell.
Traveling inwards would be sukha.
Analog clocks aren't actually two-dimensional. They do have some depth to them. But it's not like the more depth they have, the more they go into the future, because that's nonsense.
Okay.
To be antecedent to both is a great word. Antecedent, look it up.
It just means before. That's it. That's all it means.
I'm going to look up antecedent.
Antecedent to both dukkha, transcendence. That would be the
It
battery
says
behind the clock.
antecedent, what assholes say instead of saying going before or preceding. Just kidding.
What was that, Urban Dictionary?
It's not quite like that. No, I just made it up.
Oh.
I made it up.
Give another clock analogy here. Clock analogy is pretty good, actually. If you
Is it? Because so far it's been incomprehensible, Ken.
think about it. Helps people
What
visualize
if-
things. So, there's two types of space: dukkha and sukha. The nave of the wheel, of course, represents.
All right. You're talking about like phase space?
Your guess is as good
And
as mine. This is
The
complete.
other one
This is
is.
complete nonsense. But we all know to understand the universe, you need to speak Tamil, the mother of languages. Oh man, one of my favorite memes actually is like language X is so much. I've heard it about Sanskrit. I've heard it about Greek. I've heard it about like freaking Georgian from like Georgia, the country, not the state.
King James English is the original
I've
language.
heard it about Hebrew. I've heard it about Arabic. It's like, no, guys, none of these are the mother of all languages. Sorry,
Yeah, hieroglyphics.
facts are the
What
mother.
about that one language that was so old that even the TARDIS couldn't translate it? That
Oh,
could
the
be.
demon language from the Demon
I
Pit.
don't remember which one. There was
the
like
Satan
3 episodes where that happened.
Yeah, well,
Oh no, yeah, I think that is the one actually.
is it
Is
the
the
Satan
one.
Pit? Is that the name of the two-parter?
Well, there is
And Billy
that
Piper,
story.
right? One of their episodes.
Oh, was that Martha?
I thought it was Rose.
be wrong. Could be wrong. I don't know.
Guys, let us
I thought it
know.
was Martha Jones.
Those of you who are big and Billy Piper, I think it was, but
Counter space, sort of the ether.
ooh, counter space.
If either one of us are right, it's gonna be a drink for a prediction.
Fair.
Or the transcendence, to place oneself therein, where you are no longer chasing the wheel and
The knave. Knave is a kind of person. I think he means the navel. I think he's literally just mixing up the word knave, which means sort of a ne'er-do-well, and the navel. Which okay, maybe I'm wrong, and
I
he
think
does.
that's
Okay,
what he means. Which
all right, fair enough.
it's still nonsensical.
Well, yeah.
but-
analogy is that of dukkha. Space, of course, is the mirage of infinite potential, and of course called infinity.
Of course, it
negative-
is.
Obvious. Yeah, we all knew this.
The image of pure
What was I
potential
thinking?
would be pure impotency, and this is
They have pills for that now.
what actual space is relative to the ether itself.
I'm gonna drink for a joke that did land.
Okay, that's
Really, a point circumference.
a point can't have a circumference. A point is definitionally. TikTok for
It's but only dictionarily. If you speak thesaurically, then maybe, and also nonsensically.
TikTok for 100 Argentinian pesos says Tamil is the meme. The real are Atlans. Yeah, I've heard those too.
Bad
My
Wolf.
goodness.
Bad Wolf 2183 confirms it was Rose Tyler, and I think I'll drink for your confirmed prediction.
Thank you. All right, guys, we're about halfway through with this. We're gonna get past the half. We're gonna be right back.
The emptiness that exists between a point, which is not an actual point. In other words, the nexus,
that's
sort of the core of the
hilarious.
plane of inertia, circumference geometry.
Space is a point circumference geometry, guys. Now we know. And that literally means nothing. That's not a sentence. That's not even a noun phrase. I love that he's basically Ken's whole shtick is like, hey, if I say enough big words, maybe they won't notice that none of this makes sense. Oh man. Okay.
Or the hollow of a sphere.
The hollow of a sphere.
Oh.
That's what a point is, except for no.
Maybe Ken is going hollow like Dark Souls style. Maybe that explains what this
Maybe
erraticness.
his brain is a singularity of nonsense.
You could even say the hollow of the plane of inertia. It doesn't make any difference. So the hollow.
The hollow of the plate.
True, it's equally nonsensical. It doesn't make any difference.
All right, yeah, you know what? That's he got that right. We'll take a drink.
What did he say? Though?
That
The
is
plane
the
of inertia.
toroidal
Yeah, something like that.
formation of magnetic
Ah.
force divergence.
Magnetic force divergence.
I did not know inertia was toroidal.
It's magnetic
That's the
force
90s.
divergence. This is
He's just stating words now.
oh, it's just like, hey, which fancy sounding words can I smash together? My goodness.
I've seen this on like comedy skits. What Pose do?
Oh, and
They just start spewing the words.
Jolly
It's all nonsense.
Jolly Green Tank has also pointed out that the Satan Pit is one of the episodes. I had originally said Demon Pit, and I was like, no, it's Satan. It's the Satan Pit. That's the episode. So
It creates.
we're gonna tell people what a torus actually is. So a torus is a shape that you can get from circles, basically. So a circle is all points equidistant from a certain center point on a plane, right? You can get a torus by spinning circles around a circle, with each circle being orthogonal to the plane that the circle sits on, as well as the tangent line to that point on the plane. That creates a torus. Now it has a major radius, which is the radius of the circle that you're drawing the other circles around, right? It has a minor radius, which is this radius tangent to this one point on every one of the donut. Is the idealized version of a donut is a torus, right? So a torus is just a map.
We know that.
No, that's true. He's definitely not.
Is the toroidal geometry of the loss of energy or inertia of the dielectric and the creation of space. What do you think fills up the volume of the torus?
Oh, is it space, Ken? Is it the thing that doesn't end? Counter time is the infinitesimal expanse of the radius of the tesseracted hyperplane in the tangential cube. That makes so much sense. It all is coming together now. That is a perfect Ken Wheeler mimicry right there.
I need to get a Dapper Dino pillow and smash my head into it as hard as I
I
can.
think everyone does. Merch store in the description.
Because, my goodness,
Yeah, it's quite a
this
thing.
is bad.
Yeah. What we're going to do actually now is we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back after this wonderful music. And guys, stick with us. There's going to be, we've got 8 minutes left of a roughly hour or so of AMA from me. So you can ask me anything, but we are going to go over, there are some things I probably won't answer, which is just like the things I normally don't answer. But it will be an opportunity for anyone to ask me random crap. You know, you can ask me what my favorite food is or something. I don't know. All right. Here is the intermission. And we are back. Welcome back, everybody. I want to point out that TC the Unbeliever says a Taurus requires a Toreador. Well, the Toreador might tell you that, but I think you'll find that the Nosferatu might disagree.
Of magnetic field geometry. So
Brilliant abstract poetry that this man is stating right now.
Oh, you know what?
It is absolutely fascinatingly
I just realized something.
dumb. Yeah.
I didn't actually put any vodka in this. I need to be back with some vodka because I can't do this completely sober. So you know what, everybody? I'm going to be back. Bets here is going to entertain you by saying amazingly cool things that no one...
I'm going to read... No, not that one. No, hold on. It's the wrong notebook. Nope, those are the wrong chords. So the Evo at like 1:40, I didn't like it. I'm going to replace it with a smoother, quieter tone, a little really quiet but like high gain. It'll really sound great. And then I did it. It sounded great. You'll have to wait until the song's out, though. That's called Heat Death. That one's pretty fun. I kind of stopped taking notes on it. Page. Oh, this is kind of on the back burner, but there is a thing involving some, how do you say, creative. Well, I just won't say anything about it for now because
There's more Ken Wheeler then.
Found in Plato's Republic 509D to 511.
Wait, you said you discovered it, Ken, and now you're saying it was in Plato's Republic. Which is it, man? Don't give me this.
he discovered it from this plate that that no one else has ever seen, or whatever.
Hopefully he's going to tell us.
11's tattooed right here on the inside of my right wrist. It's 1/5 to the power.
What's that math website that I use? What is it?
Wolfram.
Oh, there it is. Wolfram. Oh.
I was only guessing.
We're going to do... no, I mean, that is it. We're going to do 1/5 third. Just evaluate that. So that's...
Is that what he said?
Yep.
I thought there was a negative sign in there.
Oh, well, let's
somewhere.
find it and find out, right?
Can't remember.
Plato's Republic 509D to 511. It's tattooed right here on the inside of my right wrist. It's 1/5 to the power of -3. 1 is not a number.
-3. Okay. Okay. So let's see. So the -3 here. All right. Oh, I'm getting there's a curve associated with it. Take a derivative.
Does it look like inertia?
No, it doesn't at all. So phi is this big long thing where it's 1.161 whatever. So we're gonna do 1 over that parentheses. We're gonna raise it to the -3. Now that I actually have the numbers in here. Alfred, oh, did you want to take my? No, I just want the number. Okay, so the thing that Ken has discovered, the big revelation: 77499789694 091736687312763763. Sorry, 7623 25 724 2708972 and
Go on.
there you go. I mean, it keeps going, but like, okay, that's cool. I'm glad that you discovered a number that's pretty much 4.24. Cool. I don't know what to do with that though.
Nothing to do with that.
Okay, cool.
Of course, rather a principle. 0, rather the placeholder representing space. Sort of the volume of the 1 is manifest due to the loss of some of that energy.
Some of that 4.23 energy. Okay.
Some of that loss of that energy is not original sin or first cause.
What?
Original. I'm just taking a drink.
Did he say original sin?
He absolutely said original sin.
Because it kind of stuttered for me a bit on the video,
Yeah,
and I wasn't sure if that's what
he said. Original sin for whatever reason.
Not use it at some point in his abstract poetry.
So far as monistic would be to the absolute, no different than illumination's relevance to that of light.
Do you think that his fans think they understand this? Or do you think that they're just like, he's so amazing, I can't even comprehend it?
I remember someone saying something about Mr. Batman that sounded similar. It turns out word salad is word salad is word salad, no matter who's doing it.
For space volume, something is done or made. That work, of course, has...
No, work is not something being done or made. Work is displacement over time. That's what that is. It's your displacement. Whatever.
As its wake, just like battery-powered, my DeWalt battery-powered tool equipment. Work is done, the battery is depleted, something where we actually create something of space or magnitude.
Okay, so if your DeWalt power tools make space, then that should mean the distance between your power tools and other objects just happens to increase every time you use them.
It doesn't.
Yeah, pretty sure it doesn't. I've used power tools before. I think I technically activated a power tool today. I didn't do anything with it. I think I just like pressed the trigger one. But space didn't just increase, at least not measurably. So it's another one of those like citation needs.
Or we actually cleave something depending on what the tool actually does, cuts wood, all sorts of different DeWalt tools to give a visual analogy of the loss of inertia, which creates...
He is right. There are a lot of different DeWalt tools. I'll take a drink to that. Also, is he sponsored by DeWalt?
I don't know the worst brand of those types of tools.
I don't know.
Someone who doesn't use those power tools, but I know some people who have and who have recommended brands. None of them have ever recommended that brand.
Maybe they're the
What do
budget
I
brand.
know? I'm just a guy. What do I know?
Something and therefore creates space. Of course, this is a placeholder, and that wake...
What does that mean, awake? Like, a wake is a series of waves that come behind something moving through a medium. Where is the wake?
That's what you think, and that's
Any volume. See, and
the inertia of the torus.
but inertia requires a speed, and speed requires distance, and distance is a measurement of space.
He hasn't defined inertia very well, has he?
No, he's not defined any of this very well.
That's true.
It's like
I mean, I'm
the
just thinking of
toroidal
these large donuts made out of inertia, and like, I just want to eat some donuts.
waves. There's no such thing as a wave. A wave is...
Dude, you've been talking about waves in ether and wakes.
Everything is waves, by the way.
Those are waves. This is like the opposite of spirit science, where everything is a wave and no one knows what a wave is. But then here's Ken saying nothing is a wave, even while he talks about what waves are. I don't even know. This really is like the opposite end of
He's
stupid
trying
from...
to like. I was gonna say, is he trying to just describe like he thinks he's living in like a simulated universe, like a holodeck or something?
No.
And they're explaining that.
Yeah, I don't know.
not what something is, rather what something does. So
It involves the transporter beam
the hollow of
and
the
the
energy
replicator system.
spent is, of course, the space made.
Because fields require space to be real, buddy. So if there's a dielectric field, it exists in space.
Oops.
Wah, wah.
Electric field, of course, is centrifugal divergence, i.e. the creation of the toroidal geometry, which is, of course, magnetism.
In space.
Let's use the clock analogy again here for a quick.
Let's
Only
not.
topographically.
Everybody has like
And
one of
in
those
all
cheap
other
15,
ways.
like I got over here. There's a little AA battery on the back of it that you plug in, and a little cheap plastic wheel that you turn.
That's a joke.
It's a
the clock.
cycle laugh. There was no joke involved.
The battery on the back of the clock is in counter space. Okay. So counter space is where space gets its energy from, but space doesn't exist because it's zero, which is momentum, which is a torus that doesn't exist because it's made of ether.
I thought it was back in time because when they go outwards from the clock, you're going to the future. That's what he said before, which also makes no sense.
Counter space.
Oh,
is
this
the ether,
whole thing has been an analogy, all about why he's wearing that same colored shirt.
Best energy or potential,
Okay.
which would be analogous to that AA battery, which depletes, but in the case of the true absolute ether, there is no depletion, nor would that be possible. There is only...
And also why? And also
I don't
why?
know.
And also
I'm
what?
just going to take a drink because none of that made sense. Oh, man. This is like... It's similar levels of nonsense, and this is what this reminds me of. Because Mr. Intelligent Design is talking about how by putting different amounts of tissue paper across required for life to exist to be intelligent design, and the entire universe is intelligently designed. It's like, okay, you discovered all of this because you dropped several eggs through tissue paper. Sure, why not, buddy? Just, yeah, that totally checks out. It's the same level. Although...
Too bad.
Ken here has better production than Mr. Intelligent Design does, so I'll give him that.
Centrifugal divergence and centripetal convergence, the energy remanifests or
Yeah, that's a phrase that was. We're going to take a drink because that doesn't mean it. Entropy isn't a verb.
What if Deepak Chopra were an American incel? Good stuff. Good job, David B. Numbers. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, that is pretty.
passage, of course, that which we call time. The volume created by the moving hands and the expanding hands is space. It would be the negative image of the ether. It would be the volume of that clock face. You know, the bubble that off. You can't bend that volume.
Sure, you can. Just press on it, really. Like, this analogy is completely lost on me.
You can literally in case of a clock space, since it's filled with oxygen and nitrogen.
Oh, so you can, right?
The analogy too far.
Oh.
Yeah, don't actually think about the analogy.
We took the analogy too far. I don't know. I think we didn't take it too far enough.
I don't take that keyboard he has and kind of hit him over the head with it. Just a light little, like, stop it.
Just a
tap.
Light little tap.
And if it doesn't work, then I want to hit it over my head much harder. Until I can't do it anymore.
He did promise you this was going to be really... There you go, prediction. All right, here we go.
Is to number as possibility, i.e. counter space of the ether, is to actuality. Is the negative image of pure potential.
So when you divide time that doesn't exist into smaller parts, that becomes pure potential.
Like,
okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, why not? Like, basically, this has just turned into me trying to figure out if I've even understood the grammar. Because it's just so much more solid.
That which we call space.
Well,
but
I find it
space
distracting because he's basically listing words that are kind of complex words in random order. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard for me to make sense and, like, memorize his list. If he spoke coherently, it would be easier to, like, follow along.
Yeah.
Remember the sentence he just said, but it's
it's
like gish galloping.
This is completely
from
ludicrous.
Word to
Space has no properties. Quote unquote Nikola Tesla.
Again, Nikola Tesla saying something doesn't make it true.
Tesla's right on this.
Wait, Nikola Tesla said all of that?
Yeah, I don't think he did, but it's still going to be
the clock
citation needed on Tesla. Nikola Tesla is right on this. Although I am glad that we did get away from Nikola's text.
Light bends around corners for the same reason that mass is accelerated towards the midpoint between the two.
Gravity?
Midpoint between the two what?
Two masses.
The two corners?
I think it's the two masses.
He's talking about lights and corners.
Yeah, he's saying that light diffracts around corners for the same reason that mass attracts mass. So apparently, light diffraction just is gravity.
What he said though.
But here's the thing, right? You can get light to diffract in the direction opposite of gravity. So, no, it's not the same reason.
The point between the two is the lowest pressure mediation between both. Masses never accelerate towards
counterpoint, or lowest null point in counter space.
Null points inside his head.
Yeah, see, counter space, which apparently is a reflection of space, which doesn't exist, even though it has a mirror image, is full of null points of different heights. And the lowest one is where mass goes. Now, it's conveniently, apparently, always at the very center of masses. Which conveniently makes it just identical to mass attracting mass. Fancy that.
Coincidence.
Yeah.
Between the two.
Of all the things that he thinks aren't things, I'm kind of surprised he doesn't think a shadow is a thing.
Light has a chasm, apparently. I don't know. I'm dreaming nonsensical.
In effect, of course, a privation. Likewise, too, of course, space is the chasm.
Likewise.
Oh, we got a Mothra. Drink for Mothra. Oh, gonna have to hit the drink counter button.
Yet all of humanity and present-day so-called science have a PhD. We know about space warping.
How dare experts in a field have an opinion on that field, right? We should be all listening to Ken Wheeler, who's telling you the point. Everyone knows that PhDs don't know anything.
Especially when you use that mocking voice. Mm-hmm. That makes it funnier and therefore more true.
It's a reification of space is no different than a child reifying a shadow. Shadow is not a thing.
Kinda.
Tell that to the Vashta Narada.
Right?
Huh?
It's a very Who-themed episode, so
And that was Donna
That
Noble.
was Donna
And I
Noble,
will
yeah.
fight you if you
No,
disagree.
I agree with you.
No one will. I didn't mean you. I meant no one's going to disagree. Everybody remembers that.
Or they just didn't see it.
That's true. They might not have seen it. You should watch The Silence in the
Sure it
Library.
is.
It is
Standard.
the best episode.
I'm still partial to Blink, but it is also.
I'm not going to say you're wrong, because it's a great one. But
Ironically, it's one of my favorite episodes, despite having the Doctor in it. Almost not at all.
it's a very good standalone episode.
It's the one that got me to watch the rest of the show. Someone's like, "Hey, watch this." I'm like, "All right, fine, I'll watch this one." Like, holy crap, I need to watch the rest of the show.
Yeah, but the rest of it isn't like that.
I know, but it still was the thing that made me think that if they can make this show, it's going to be a good show.
In shadow, you feel cold. Shadow does have interesting little attributes when you're in a shadow, but that
How
doesn't
could a
give
shadow have attributes if it's not a thing?
Good point.
reification to a
Argue
shadow
that
being
point.
something.
All right, look, DM Wing says, unpopular opinion, these weeping angels aren't scary. Look, they got less scary during the Matt Smith years. Because,
Yeah, they got scarier in VR.
well, there's that. But the problem with the weeping angels is that they were a one cool, simple, scary thing when they premiered in Blink, or Don't Blink, or whatever, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But then they would try to expand it, and like whatever holds the image of an angel holds an angel, and then like you're gonna become an angel if it like gets inside your brain or something. Like, it was just like, no, this is just getting lame. Yeah, I think it was a mistake to make the angels into like a big protagonist in the Matt Smith year. I think
Scary. I wasn't scared of them, but like it seemed like a serious threat
I don't know.
to the characters.
Yeah. All right, we only got 2 hours, or sorry, it's 2 minutes and 42 seconds.
This is why we reify things. Human beings, one of their fundamental fallacies, reifying, creating things that don't exist.
I mean, reification is when you treat an abstract concept as if it is that you can concretely measure it. So unless you can find a way to prove that you can't measure it, it is kind of a real thing. And ultimately, shadows are too, right? Shadows are what's called an emergent property. Think about baseball. Does baseball exist, Ben?
Yes.
Are you sure?
As a sport.
I mean, where is it in
Yes.
physics? See, the thing is, it emerges from humans, right? Humans have this thing where they...
It's an activity.
Yeah. So
it's like a noun that's not a person or a place or a thing, but still a noun. It's an idea.
Yep.
It's a gathering of a bunch of people where they throw balls and take bats and swing and
right. So similarly,
spit and grab their crotches a bunch and then make a whole bunch of money
well, some of them do. Very few.
for football player in the NFL. Except
But
for
you're
maybe
thinking
now
of
that's changing a
pro
little
baseball
bit,
players.
but like
Most baseball players aren't.
a lot.
The thing is, baseball doesn't exist in the same way that a rock does, right? Like a rock is, or even an atom, right? These are things that are right there. You can measure them. They have a weight. They have a... Shadows don't really have these things either. However, just like baseball emerges from the interaction of humans agreeing to do a thing, shadows talk about them as an emergent phenomenon. Just like also another good example is ant colonies solving problems, right? Ant colonies can solve very complex problems despite the fact that no ant is very intelligent. And all each ant does is just react to the physical... And yet together, they form this collective intelligence that can solve very complex problems in some cases.
People do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So a shadow exists in this emergent sense, but it does have properties.
Unicorn, which of course doesn't exist, everybody has in their head.
Oh man, I think the one-horned rhinoceros certainly does exist.
Seeing the freak mutated horns, every once in a while you'll see. It's not a real thing that reproduces as a unicorn, so
Maybe unicorns are
doesn't
like
really matter.
mules. They exist, but
Also, I've seen them in video games. Come on.
oh yeah, good point. And video games exist.
Well, they have a lot of ones and zeros, so I don't know.
That's true.
You think
Those aren't even numbers, so
those are just inertia toruses.
they're the same thing too. If ones and zeros are the same thing.
I should just say things like Fibonacci and Tesla and I don't know.
Cool.
Likewise.
Oh right.
And then obviously That's how.
TC the Unbeliever says a Discworld computer uses ants. That is really cool. And also, I want to point out there is a book series that I believe is currently 2 books, although I think a 3rd one is in the works, or maybe it's already been published. I just haven't been noticing. The first book is Children of Time. I liked both of them. Neither of them are like absurdly long, and both of them feature computers that are composed primarily of ants that have been bred specifically to be a computer. And both are really good, and they talk about a lot of things like how would organisms, could humans learn to work together with such things? Is war inevitable? Is human nature just inherently destructive? And then the 3rd book continues with some of these themes, where they encounter more civilizations that are even more different than the ones that you encounter in the first book, including one that is entirely... I don't get any money for saying this, but check out Children of Time, and if you like that one, then check out Children of Ruin. I highly recommend them. One thing a little bit hard to track sometimes, because they jump back and forth between different time frames, some cases like over thousands of years, so like you do have to get used to that. You have to keep track pretty carefully of 2 different timelines, both of which advance pretty rapidly. But here we go.
A picture of a unicorn, obviously, even though it doesn't exist.
Which exists. We'll take a drink. We're going to take a drink for each of the things that don't exist, that do exist, in a very discrete and real physical
Of
way.
the 9 primary things.
Right. Here's one.
I'm going to have to take him after I refill this.
Emptiness, shadows,
Those kind of don't exist. I'll give them those.
waves.
Emptiness exists.
Well, the thing is, emptiness isn't a thing unto itself. It is just an absence of other things.
I have depression more often.
Well, I'm going to take a drink for waves, because they definitely do exist.
That's 2 drinks.
There's about 8 or 9 primary.
You're just going to stop there? You're going to get bored done? Okay.
Listen, this person of such high intelligence can't be bothered to count to 9.
I mean, you know he's smart because he has...
when he's counting to 4.
You know he's smart because he has Greek letters tattooed on his finger.
Doesn't act upon things. It can't be bent.
I mean...
Don't talk about me in this, okay?
But it's true, you're not space.
Space can be me. I occupy space.
It is literally no
Occupies
different
space-time.
than the volume of the torus of the magnetic geometry.
Which would have to exist in a space, so it's still a thing that exists in space.
Wait, exists, which is no different than this other thing that he's pretending exists, but by saying that, he's saying that
The toroidal geometry of the momentum. Which, by the way, guys, momentum...
which doesn't exist, his words.
And also, for you to measure momentum, you need a measure of space. So, fun times.
Of magnetism.
The
The wake that's left from the loss of... It is the voluminous negative image of pure potential or infinity.
the negative image
True infinity,
of
of
pure
course.
potential or
So if
infinity.
you take pure potential, and then you just look at the film...
Be counter space. Pure energy, i.e. the ether.
Pure
i.e.
energy, he's thinking of Counter-Strike.
we're all... Well, you're all a little bit messed up.
Yes, I guess we are. Wait.
Oh,
Rude of you to say about us, Dapper Dinosaur.
well, I'm not
even if
saying
it's true.
Ceratosauruses aren't messed up.
Regarding space, we all think it is something, and it is not anything at all. We have the same ideas about waves and emptiness and all sorts of other ridiculousness.
All right, he's gonna find a way to make it so that I can't hear his skin sliding across itself all the time whenever he rubs his hands, because it's weird, it's creepy, and I haven't mentioned it. It's been here the whole time, and I don't like it.
These are conceptual abstractions with no basis in reality in Mother Nature's universe.
You talking about
Space
everything you
is
just said,
not
or
a
okay? He was talking about
Thing,
space.
nor does it have properties. It has interesting attributes. Takes a long time
What are
to traverse
attributes if not properties?
Yeah, good point.
between two bodies. Like say we're doing interstellar travel between our sun and then the closest sun, which is what, Alpha Centauri.
Proxima Centauri.
I'll
Yeah,
call
I'll
it.
take a drink for it. Here's a fun thing. In Elite Dangerous, if you try to go to Alpha Centauri, you get to Alpha Centauri. But if you want to go to Proxima Centauri, you have to fly there at like non-jump speeds from Alpha Centauri, which places it takes longer to get to. But that's just because like you just have to make so many darn jumps. Like,
What's that? That station is at Hutton Orbital.
Hutton Orbital is an in, and then set your throttle to full while you're
And
in.
go the 0.22 light years on your
Yeah,
own.
it's ridiculous. And you're also going at like multiple times the speed of light, and it still takes freaking forever.
You go up to 2001, I think. See, unless it changed in the last.
Our sun and
It's not
Alpha
real,
Centauri, for
so
example.
they're right next to one
Yeah.
another apparently, because there's no space. Got it.
Oh my, so on and so forth. But it is not a thing at all.
Okay, so how long would it take to get there then?
How come you can't get there quicker
Yeah.
then? What's your wormhole idea you're
Could
talking
I
about
jump
here?
there if there's no space?
I'm there now if there's no
Well, yeah,
space.
good point.
Reading
You-
every comment.
I think you're lying.
Well, you two can fight it out later.
And that takes a really long time, actually. Thanks so much for watching. You have a lovely week.
Thanks, you too.
Lux Everetas. Goodbye.
Bye, Ken.
Well,
That
well.
was Ken Wheeler. I think that was your first introduction to Ken Wheeler, Vince.
Yeah, I do feel the stroke right behind here happening.
Yeah, it's
Probably a cluster headache. Probably just.
it's baffling. Complete and total nonsense, and I delivered.
You did not lie about
Yeah,
that.
I was very accurate about that assessment. So what's going to happen now, actually, is I'm going to go refresh my drink real quick. Ben, I think, might get out of here, and then we're going to start an AMA session. I'm going to let that go for about an hour, unless people just don't ask questions, which is fine, too. And I will be discussing the rules of the AMA.
Said that he will answer the first 1,000 questions in the
don't
comments.
I think I said that.
Or was it 1 million? No, he didn't say
Say
that.
any of that.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
But do leave a question.
He commits to none of that. But 1 million questions in the comments would be pretty great.
Yeah. All right, guys, I am back. Ben Tobin is not back. So this is going to be an approximately hour or so long AMA. Here's what I want you guys to do. First, if you have questions, tag me. If you don't tag me, I'm not going to say I won't answer the question, but I might not notice it. Second, if you want your question to skip to the head of the line, super chat it. Third, stay active. So if you want me to get progressively more drunk as the AMA goes on, with any of the kaiju emojis, that counts. If you're not, if you super chat anything to the effect that AIG are a bunch of dicks, we will drink to that. And I will be going until questions, and I will also put that in the chat. This is your chance to ask me anything. Now, the things that I've said previously that I'm not going to divulge in public. So that includes things like my religious stance, my political takes, and my relationship status, my sexual orientation. Those are things that aren't really Dapper Dino. Dapper Dino essentially doesn't have those things because he's a Ceratosaurus. Don't ask. But while I'm waiting for the first question to come in, I want to say thank you very much to everyone who has been with me for all of these several years now. 500 videos is quite significant. It says, Dapper Dinosaur, what is your favorite non-avian dinosaur? So that is actually the tougher question. I normally, if someone asks me what's Galapavo, which is, it's hard to say if I have a single favorite non-avian dinosaur. I like a lot of them for different reasons, right? For instance, everyone loves T-Rex. It's big, it's scary, it's full of teeth. That's really cool. I like a lot of dromaeosaurs, like I like Utahraptor and Velociraptor and Microraptor, and even some of the ones that don't have raptor in their name, like Dromaeosaurus. Among Ornithischians, I have a soft spot in my heart for like the how ugly Heterodontosaurus is. Scutellosaurus is really cool for basically being like the first thyreophoran that we have. I like a lot of Ceratopsians. Diabloceratops is really cool. Pecorinosaurus is really cool. So picking a favorite is tough. This is a little bit arbitrary and it's subject to change, but right now I'm gonna have to say the Velociraptor part because I have a 1-to-1 scale replica of a Velociraptor skull on my wall. So DM Wing for $5 says, so I actually ended up being homeschooled for it was about 5 years at the beginning of my schooling career. And now I was being homeschooled by some Christian parents. However, my dad actually had a degree in education, and he was himself a school teacher. So he actually knew what he was doing. With actually some pretty good science. We didn't go super into deep depth into like biology, but like we did some pretty good physics, some pretty good like earth sciences, the water cycle, how meteorology basically works. I learned to read really. Then I ended up skipping 5th grade and going into 6th grade at a public school. And so I did 6th, 7th, and 8th at the public school. That I did not get on well with all the children. But then I went to a Catholic school for high school. So that's years 9, 10, 11, and 12. And I actually had a much better time there. I got along better with the kids there. I learned more there. As far as being much, much older than the children, well, you know, when you're a dinosaur, everyone kind of expects that. Dragon Spartan 90 says, were you born dapper in the lab, or was something you acquired or required later? I think you mean acquired later. So I acquired that later. It took years of training to become as dapper as I am right now. I actually changed my first name to Dapper after I became so darn dapper. I actually really enjoy around somewhere around here that I have to put together, which is actually a gift from RJ Down. I don't know if that counts as a handicraft, but I really like doing that. I don't have a whole lot of experience with like carving wood, but I do have some with like woodworking things, but that's mostly for like practical use, like very basic things like, oh, like there needs to be a table here. Well, I can quickly cobble together a table out of some wood. Not ever for like artistic stuff. I'm not very good with that. So I do like some woodworking. I've done very little metalworking, very, very little. So yeah, I think that's it. John to a bag, very nice. We'll take a drink for that one. Space Dragon says, have you ever gone scuba diving? No. I have gone snorkeling a few times, but only in like the northeast of the United States, which is kind of frigid. I mean, I think scuba diving would be cool. I think it would be a fun time of doing because, well, quite frankly, one, it's expensive to get into, even if you're just renting the equipment. Really need for like the rest of my entire life. Like, if I never, ever, ever set foot in the ocean again, that would be okay by me, right? Because I was in the Navy and I got a lot of ocean. A lot. There's an old story about a man who gives up his life as a sailor. It varies in the story whether or not he was in the Navy or he's just like a merchant. On his shoulder, he starts walking inland, and someone asks him, "Hey, what are you doing with that oar?" Then I'll know that that's where I need to live. I'm kind of in that boat, right? Like I am intentionally living in a place that is far enough away from the ocean that people might not know what an oar is. People don't generally own boats around here either. So there is that. Yeah, staying, underwater with looking at all the wonderful life that's under the ocean and everything. That does sound really cool. But if I did it, it would really only be in like some kind of like tropical area for me. I'm not super claustrophobic, but like, and cave scuba diving is super dangerous. Plus, what is there to look at? It's a bunch of rocks, some blind fish. I want to see like colorful tropical fish and coral reefs and sharks and rays and skates and sea cucumbers, which, by the way, are not very much like cucumbers. I don't know if you guys know this. Sea cucumbers are not much like cucumbers. Space Dragon says, Would you want to be alive if and or when humanity meets or interacts with, such as through radio signals, another sapient species from outside Earth? I mean, that would be really cool. I would love to be in that situation where like that's happening right now and I get to see how it goes. I do think there'd be some unrest, I think. Although I don't think it's as bad as like you hear about people fearing about like, oh, it would cause a complete collapse of society. I doubt it. Because the thing is, you got to remember, societies have gone through what amounts to first contacts before, right? Like, when it was discovered by Europeans that there were humans living in the Americas who had been there for as long as anyone can figure, that caused a bit of a crisis. I forgot to hit. Rap did send a drink, so I did take a drink. So it's analogous to this situation, right? So you find an entire new group who you didn't know existed, and you have no really easy way to account for, right? So you can actually look through European literature about the New World, and it's talking about how did these people get there? Like, were they descended from one of Noah's sons? Was there another group that survived the Great Flood? Are they a separate creation from the humans of the Old World? And if they are, what does that mean about them in terms of like spiritual stuff? Like, do they have souls? Can they be saved? Can they become Christians? Now, of course, today we think these are all kind of silly questions, but it wasn't for them because these were fundamental parts of their worldview. So, like humans come from Noah. Yeah, sure, obviously. And if they didn't, and we're not sure if they could have, then were they a separate thing? And if that's the case, like it was a big thing, but it didn't cause riots and a collapse of society to encounter something that for at the time was very alien. So I don't think it'll collapse society, but I do think there'll be some unrest. But I do think overall it'll be fascinating. However, here's the bad news, right? I don't actually think that's going to happen. I don't think humans are going to encounter another intelligent species. I think that either humans are one of the vanishingly small numbers of organisms to have ever passed the Great Filter, or the Great Filter is still looming. Now, if you don't know what the Great Filter is, sorry about that noise there. If you don't know what the Great Filter is, it's a concept that comes from the Fermi paradox, right? So Enrico Fermi has this idea that we can find these factors, and if we knew the numbers for all the factors, civilizations should exist. And we start with like the total number of stars. Then it's to the total number of, or the fraction of stars that could support life. The fraction of life that becomes intelligent numbers come up with there should be at least hundreds of civilizations like ours in the Milky Way, right? Just in the Milky Way. But there has never been even a whiff of any of them. It means that civilizations don't come into being, right? It could be that life is just so unlikely to form. It almost never forms. Or it could be that intelligence is just so vastly unlikely, right? Or it could be that once intelligence arises, it tends to wipe itself out. That could be a great filter, right? Like maybe that is just so unlikely that Earth is one of the only times it's ever happened. Like maybe it's happened like 3 other times in the entire galaxy, right? So we shouldn't really expect to hear from other civilizations. Or maybe the Great Filter is still looming in the future, and humanity is just going to find it. Just not be here for much longer. So yeah. Now let's see. Jake 4D says the Fermi paradox is missing several variables in his opinion. I mean, it could very well be, right? Think about like the what do you call it? It's the Drake equation, right? The Drake equation is the equation I was talking about. There's a whole lot of things that you could fit in there that would also make sense in terms of limiting the number of civilizations that you should be detecting. And yeah, it is the Drake equation. There is a theory that humans could be, sorry, a very early intelligence Feeling spot similar to many sci-fi universes precursors. Yeah, that's also a possibility. It could just be that humans are one of the first intelligent species to ever arise, and that there will be more in the future. It could also be that they're just so far apart from each other in time that they're unlikely to ever meet each other, right? Now, the thing there is it probably requires that interstellar travel not become a real thing. But the thing is, other than just resources, it doesn't seem like there's a big thing that's stopping interstellar travel. Like, it seems to be fundamentally possible. It's just that it's going to take time frames on, like, the millions of year scale. But the thing is, for an intelligent species to colonize an entire galaxy, which means that it probably hasn't happened. We don't see that. Which means if there have been other intelligences, humans might not get out of the solar system. It will doom of the human species sooner than it would otherwise, which I would rather not. Like, I would like to think that the human species has billions of years ahead of it. Humans, I think they do cool stuff. But that is where I'm seeing questions ending, so I'm going to take a quick drink just for me, because I am thirsty, and hopefully you guys get some more questions in there. Remember, this is Ask Me Anything. You can ask about... Sorry, a little bit of a tickle in my throat. Actually, I'm going to grab a cough drop. Why not, right? Take a cough drop, take a drink. We're going to continue on with Space Dragon's next question. Right, and a Coke and vodka only kind of tastes like cherry Coke. Not great. Looked in all ways exactly like humans. Would that change anything? Well, that would change a lot of things for me personally. I would have a hard time thinking of that as a coincidence, right? That would require some kind of explanation. And honestly, it would be hard for me to think of a naturalistic explanation as to how two organisms that share no common ancestry would look identical. Like, there would have to be some kind of genetic engineering, some kind of supernatural entity, some kind of common ancestry somewhere. 2285, or sorry, 585 did. Frankly, it's growing at a pace that I wish it were a lot more. I know it could be a lot more. Like, people do grow a lot faster than I do. Although I am also growing faster than a lot of other people that I know, right? Like, there are people that I've been fans of on YouTube that I've passed up in numbers of both views as well as subscriber counts. I think a lot of it is regular uploads. This channel has not failed to do 3 uploads in a week for a very long time. I think in the past 2 years, it's happened like maybe twice that there were only 2 videos. It's never gone below 2 videos that I know of in like over 2 years. My stuff is generally well researched. I think I speak clearly. Some people say I have a soothing voice. I can't speak to that. I kind of hate the sound of my voice after I'm finished with a video. Not as much as I used to, but like, man, after I finish making a pre-recorded video, I get so tired of it. But yeah, I think it's a combination of the production quality, which granted these streams have been kind of iffy on, but that's a fairly recent thing. The level, I'm not just doing like random trolly lazy stuff, right? Like, I'm not just pointing and laughing. Sure, I do point and laugh, but I don't just do that. I think that's some bit. Dragon Spartan 90 says, who is your favorite troll that has visited your live streams before the most? I mean, Otangelo is always ridiculous resistance, and then just comes back for more. He went in the space of 1 day from a mod on the channel to came back with one of his many alts. A little on the trolley side. I can tell you one of my least favorite trolls is Jason Ezard. Not because, you know, he issued a death threat, he denied it. And it's like, dude, own up to your own shit, man. Definitely threatened to kill me. And then you're like, no, I didn't. That didn't happen. It's like, man, I have the footage. It's on my channel. It's on both of my channels. That's my least favorite troll. He's not allowed in here. He was actually on my channel though once, like on air, and that was a disaster. Actually kicked him after I repeatedly told him that he needs to stop interrupting Erica. He needs to let her finish, and then he can talk. He couldn't do it, so I kicked him. And Erica, you know, being the very kind and understanding person that Erica is, was like, oh no, it's not a big deal. It's like, no, it is a big deal for me. I set a rule, he can't follow it. You're not you, Erica, Jason. With David Brin's Uplift series of books, one of the best human-alien interaction stories ever. I'm not, actually, John Rapp. If you're on Twitter, if you could send me like a link to that or something, that would be interesting. I would be interested to take a look at that. I do alien interaction, kind of heady it, look at like how would society change in the event of such big revelations and stuff like that. Cross-platform adventures says, I think one reason you're popular is because you're respectful to people you disagree with. I like to think that that's also the case. Now, I'm not always respectful. Like, I mean, Kent Hovind is literal human trash, so I have no respect for that man. Like, none. I don't care. I used to, but that stopped. It stopped when I started talking to victims had suffered much more than I thought was the case. Like, I thought like the extent of his quote-unquote victimizing of people was just lying to them about science, and then they find out about that and have like a crisis of faith. No, it's much, much worse than that. So I don't have any respect for him. But in my one-on-one interactions with people, I'm very patient, and whenever I cover a new person, I'm always going to give them the benefit of the doubt until they show that they're dishonest. Unfortunately, that sadly happens a lot, and I've been feeling myself getting thinner and thinner tempered. Shorter and shorter tempered. That's the correct analogy. Sorry. Barry is a ICR geologist. It's just like ridiculous. He's going on about how there's no real evidence for the Chicxulub impactor at the end of the Cretaceous. It's like, dude, there's shock quartz, there's melt, there's breccia, tektites all over the world, an iridium layer, a freaking crater. Like, what more could you possibly want to say that an asteroid hit the Earth? Potential isn't real. He likes space. This is true. Space Dragon says, have you read the Damned trilogy by Alan Dean Foster? No. What is that about? Let me know. That might be something I'm looking into. Right now, I can tell you what I'm reading right now, which is I'm going through, in not a very orderly fashion, the Sanderson. I read Way of King, or The Way of Kings. Then I read Wars of Radiance. No, then I read what was it? Warbreaker. I'm trying to go in the order. I read The Emperor's Soul, and now I'm reading Elantris. I'm going to finish up with the third short story. Well, the short story that comes after Elantris, which I think is called Hope of Elantris. Then I think I'm going to go on to Oathbringer, and then because the fourth book in that series, which is the Stormlight Archives, has not been released, I'm going to jump into the Mistborn trilogy. It's basically two trilogies all set in the same. So I think I'm going to jump into that after I finish with Oathbringer. Let's see. Oh, and apparently that answered book, if any, are you reading right at the moment? So I'm usually reading 3 categories of book at any given time, right? One is nonfiction narrative book. Sorry, not nonfiction book, slowly, but I'm reading it. Grand Canyon Monument to an Ancient Earth, which contains parts that were written by Joel Duff, friend of the channel, has a blog called Natural Historian, not sure. He also has a Dr. Joel Duff YouTube channel. Covers a lot of the same stuff that I do, but from an explicitly Christian perspective, where it's using bad science to argue for their faith. Very intelligent individual. I love a lot of his stuff. He does This Week in Creationism every week. Well, except, he misses occasionally, but he also does like a year in review for creationism. Great stuff there. I'm usually also reading a fiction narrative book. For me right now, that's Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. And then I'm usually also going through an RPG book, which right now is Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, which is by, give me a second. Team, right? It's by a bunch of them. Let's see. Are also backing me up in that the Brandon Sanderson books are pretty good. Let's see. Space Dragon says, is an Alien Contact series... Oh, this is about Damned, I guess. Is an Alien Contact series where one alien alliance finds humans and tries to bring them into their way of war against a second alliance. For a lot of reasons, mainly humans are amazing. Amazing warriors compared to all other known sapiens. Okay. Okay. That could be fun. Um, David DB 22585. Can't let just be straight up humanoids like that. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't feel like my Klingon studies are actually. Dragon Spartan 90 says, I also enjoyed the Mistborn trilogy. I like magic systems that have hard rules and limitations. Yeah, I think limitations are an important part of storytelling. So you can do cool stuff with soft magic systems like Lord of the Rings, right? Where it's like, oh, what exactly are Gandalf's powers? It's a little wishy-washy. But the thing is, in those cases, magic needs to be rare and mysterious. It needs to be like, oh, there's a wizard here. That's a new thing. You can also do some stuff where it's relatively commonplace. Like Harry Potter was okay with this magic system. You think that hard magic systems, it's my preference, right? I prefer a hard magic system because it means that I can understand more easily what's going on. And makes it easier for me to think that what's happening either makes sense or it doesn't. And I like it as a narrative constraint. I think that the idea of art from adversity, like if you're not currently under any crazy amounts of adversity, you can impose your own adversity by imposing hard rules to your fiction that you're not allowed to break. It's one of the reasons why I like the idea of like the SCP archive, right? Because while the magic systems in that are just off the wall, bonkers, very few rules, the format is the limiting thing, like clinical tone, and I like that. As far as drinking rule for the buffering, a lot of time trying to figure out exactly why I'm occasionally just disconnecting from YouTube, and I have tried to make it so that buffering is as minimal as possible. Right now, it varies how bad it is by time of day. So I think what's actually happening is that my ISP is having trouble staying connected to the YouTube ingest server consistently at this time of day. And I say that because earlier today I did multiple test streams for a pretty long time with just steady, rock solid connections. And I try to go live for this Bent Without Kent, and it's just trash. Same thing when I went live yesterday at the same time. So one of the things I'm going to do is Saturday I'm going to be going live at 6 hours early, move Kent with Bent over to noon, and I don't know about like Jackson with Jackson and Matt with Matty. So yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, as David B22585 says, the drink counter would be off by an order of magnitude. Yeah, if we drank every time it buffered, yeah. Fortunately, unlike last time where the buffering was often 10 plus seconds, I now have it down to where it's around a second each time, which does make it easier. So there is that, guys. Make sure you ask any more questions because we're about halfway through the AMA. So, if you have any other questions, ask them, because generally, if you ask questions that are off the topic of the stream, I'm probably not going to answer them. This topic right now is whatever the heck you guys number, which means it's great for factoring. I like all the factors in 12. So what goes into 12 evenly? Well, 1, obviously. Then 2 and 4 have 1, 2, and 5. No, that's not enough. 2, 4, and 6. That's four factors, right? Well, I had 12, so I guess 5 factors, sure. Where's 10 got? 1, 2, 5, and 10. 4 factors. No, the 5th factor. 4 factors. PM Wing says, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? Well, what do you mean, African or European? Let's see. Cross-platform adventures, do you have a favorite fact that is stranger than fiction? These are all tough questions because I don't normally think about like my favorite of most of these things. Let's see. Stranger than I don't know if this is stranger than fiction, but I do think it's a really cool and very weird fact. If you shine a black light on a platypus, it'll glow. Like, I just think that's weird. Like, why would that be? The same thing happens to scorpions, but I don't think that's like a common feature that they inherited from their most recent common ancestor. So yeah, that's really weird. That platypus fur just happens to fluoresce under black light. I don't know if that's stranger than fiction. So I guess there's that. what's the best / favorite rum or other liquor of your choice that you've had? Rum, I tend to get fairly cheap rum because I'm always mixing it into crazy amounts of like sweetness and sourness, other flavors, bitters and whatnot. So the rum is very rarely the main flavor. As long as it's not overly harsh, then a decent clear rum is really all I'm looking for. Like, I don't really care that much. Fine. Occasionally, I'll get a spiced rum just to mix directly into Coca-Cola or Diet Coke. 'Cause really, there's no other point for spiced rums mixing them into. But they're fine for that. Now, I do have a favorite gin, which is Hendrick's gin. Hendrick's is a gin that also, in addition to juniper berries, has a bunch of other botanical flavors that are infused into it, and it is delicious. I like it in very gin-forward drinks, so like a stiff martini or a gimlet or something like that. So there's that. Let's see. For whiskeys, I had a very, very long. It was like an 18-year or something, and my goodness, some of those top end whiskeys are just amazing. It's yeah, I really like a really nice whiskey, like a well aged Glenlivet, or that's really good stuff. Not that I get it very often. The current booze in my kitchen right now is a like $6 plastic bottle of vodka. And that's quite frankly because, well, I mean, look, I spend 60 plus hours a week on this channel. This is what I'm trying to make become a viable income source for me, and it is just very recently gotten to the point where In the Black is a reasonable. And even then, it's still on a knife's edge. Like, I'm probably going to end up in the red this month. That's probably just what's going to happen. I think I'll be in the black next month based on my numbers and based on what I'm expecting from Patreon in terms of like potential probable renewal of annual subscriptions next month. But yeah, it's it's tough right now for me to justify buying booze that is much more than $10 for any amount. So right now, my favorite booze is the one that I can afford. John Rapp says, have you checked Ken Wheeler's watch sub like numbers? No, I have not, actually. I know he has more subs and views than me. I have not checked his like numbers. I haven't even really looked into like the sub to view. I don't know. If there's something interesting about them, please let me know. Let's see. Oh, okay. Cross-Platform Adventure says, some people think platypus fur fluorescence might confuse eagles that can see ultraviolet light and prey on the platypus. Well, okay, that makes sense. I can see that. That would be pretty cool. Nico Kita says, what country has the best national anthem in your opinion? Okay, so this is a big caveat. I haven't heard all of the national anthems out there, right? I only know like 3 in terms of like I could sing some of the words to them, and then I could add like maybe another 2 or 3 on top of that I can like remember the tune well enough that I could recognize it as the national anthem of a particular country. And so with those caveats out there, I'm going to give a very controversial answer. And this is entirely on the musical merits of the piece, not on the basis of how much I like the country, or their current politics, or even the current lyrics. But the Russian Federation is, I think, the best tune. I love it. It's been their national anthem since the SARS. They changed the words during the USSR period. They changed the words again with the Russian Federation. I don't care about the words. I don't speak Russian anyway. The music, great. It's stirring. It's rousing. It's got a great like tempo to it. Top-notch music. I'm not endorsing anything what the Russian Federation is currently doing, though. That is not what I'm doing. I am saying, however, that their very old music to their national anthem is great. Space Dragon says, what is your favorite class in D&D? 5e. So right now I'm playing an artificer. Played D&D in like decades, so it's hard to say. But what I actually usually default to ends up often being cleric or paladin. I like having support options and utility options, which both of those classes give. I also really like being effective in combat. I like to, it allows you to very easily do like a deep dive into the lore of the setting you're playing in, because you can pick a religion to belong to, and that comes with a history of conflicts with other religions, situations where like there's been proselytizing and pushback from the organization that you can be a part of. How did you find your way into this particular like faith dynamic and all that stuff. I like the ability to sink myself into the world that being a member of an established religion gives me. And that's one of the reasons why setting. Like last time I played in Eberron, I was a paladin of the Silver Flame, and I was actually an atheist paladin. My paladin didn't actually believe that the gods existed, but he knew the Silver Flame existed because he's seen it. The country that's now just the Mournlands, and he's a warforged, so he managed to survive, you know, the big magical disaster. And he was wandering around without any purpose until he saw like a devotee of the Silver Flame save a town from like an ogre attack. So he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna look into this." That's why those two classes are some of the two. Okay, so I'm a smart guy. Okay, I guess that's a character. Cross-platform adventure says, "My favorite fact that is stranger than fiction is that there's a fungus that." Okay, that's actually pretty cool. Nature is kind of crazy, huh? Yeah, I did not know that. Nico Kita says, "You should check out the Welsh national anthem in that case. Might give the Russian a run for their money." Oh, okay. I will try to remember to do that, but I honestly can't make a promise because, well, there's been a fair bit of vodka. So I think that answers the questions that we have so far. Do get in any more because we only have, let's see, like 14, 15 more minutes, I think. Crazy questions like, "Oh, you were always too afraid to ask Dapper, but you can ask him now. So this is the time to do it." Space Dragon says, "Is there..." And if so, what is it? And what is the answer if you have one? I guess the answer is no, there isn't a question I've always wished someone would ask me. At least not in terms of like the channel. Yeah, I don't know if there were. I probably would have just said the answer publicly. Because what that basically means is there something about yourself that you want known? And I think that all the things that I actively want people to know about me are things that I'm already public about. So like, my history with young Earth creationism, which is a lot. Yeah, like I think all of those are just things that I'm already pretty public about. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, John Rapp says, "Speaking of big brains, how many of your mates had 2 brains?" To my knowledge, none. So this, I think, gets into the idea that there were some dinosaurs that had 2 brains, and that's not really true. So there was a pretty big ganglion in some stegosaur like hindquarters, but it wasn't a brain, and it's not entirely clear what it did. That it functioned in processing like reflex actions on the tail. That could be the case. But it also might not be. And we don't see it in other animals that were using their tails defensively, like ankylosaurian and ankylosaurs. So maybe that's not what was happening. Cross-platform adventure says, "What made you want to create a YouTube channel debunking creationism? I know you used to be a YEC like me, but is there any other reason?" Yes, yeah, there is actually. So one day, years ago, and I mean before the channel really became active, I was looking for, just for my own amusement, creationist debunk stuff. And I wasn't finding enough. Well, you know what? I will just make the content that I wish I was watching right now. This sort of thing. And like, okay, well, what? I can't just sound cooler. How do I make it roll off the tongue better? I was like, okay, Dapper. The Dapper dinosaur, because, it's alliterated. Okay, well, what dinosaur do I go for? I was like, well, the fanciest dinosaur. Because if I'm going to be Dapper, I have to be the fanciest dinosaur. And what's the fanciest dinosaur? Well, Obnat. And then, yeah, so I made that computer just got destroyed in that move. I was carrying it in a U-Haul like trailer in a and like behind my little car, and it as well as one of my Terraria did not make it. So when I got to Arizona, I had to buy a new terrarium for my pet lizard, who has sadly, he had to be put because she was starving herself to death, and I had to stop pretending that she was going to stop, and just let her stop suffering. So anyway, her terrarium broke. My computer broke. So then the channel just kind of went with an Allosaurus that still had a bow. It had a bow tie and a top hat, and I think a monocle. Not sure about that actually. But I had purchased that Allosaurus. That was an asset that I bought and was using. But then I started making the avatar I use now. It took me months to make this avatar. But then finally, I based the rig that I used for it on the Allosaurus that I had purchased, and now that's me. I have a rig based on the Allosaurus rig, but I box modeled it. So then I used box modeled it. Then I duplicated the box model, and I went to several subdivisions, and then I used sculpt it. Then I baked that back onto the low poly version with some subdivisions, and then I texture painted it, and yeah, that's me. Let's see. Cross-platform adventure says some people think the Stegosaurus cavity in the hips might have stored glycogen. Yeah, that's also possible. Look, one of the problems is like we're trying to guess about soft tissue. It's really tough. John Rapp says, "Is the tie bug fixed?" So here's the thing about the tie bug. When the tie bug happens, it's my fault. It's because I forgot to click a few buttons. So the tie bug is always potentially back, but also currently fixed. It's basically a problem with me, not with the tie. So basically what happens with the tie bug is the tie has a cloth simulator. So the way the tie works is the top of the tie is connected via the rig and pinning fields to basically the spot that you see it connected to my neck, right? But it also runs a cloth simulation. The cloth simulation is run at a lower resolution than the tie actually renders at. So the tie is subdivided at the very low poly version of the tie space on my computer, or well, on the file size, right? Because it has to run the whole physics simulation and store the whole physics simulation on the file. So then, if I upload the file, every person who renders a new frame, their computer is going to try to run the cloth sim, but they don't actually have, every single person ends up running it a little bit differently. So it just jumps all over the place, erratically, because no one is actually running the simulation properly. So that's what happens basically when I forget to simulate and save this. Give me a second here. I'm going to pop up Blender. And we're going to switch to my just the left-hand screen here on OBS. So, and I can say just the left-hand screen. It's actually just the main monitor. It just used to be that I had the two monitors. So, okay. We're going to open. I'm going to go to Ceratosaurus 2, because that's updates. All right, so this is the file that I use to create my animations, right? So I go to pose mode. This is the rig that controls my body. And obviously this is the tie. I have to go back to object mode to select it. So here's the tie. Now you can see the tie is just kind of standing there, and if I scrub through the timeline, it doesn't do anything. That's because if I go over here, this is my modifier tab, and you can see that this cloth modifier is not shown. So it's not actually in real time, but it is selected under render, and adjust these start and end frames to match up with how basically what I have to do at the end of every single scene that I do. So I have to tick this box, come here, change the start frame and the end frame, and then hit bake, and then I have to save the file. If I forget to do any of those things, the tie bug is going to come back. So that is how that works. Oh, and actually, you know what? Just the main monitor. I'll come back here. If you want, you guys can see. We'll go to the view where you can actually see some of the shaders. I'll turn the room on for you guys, so you can take a little quick 3D tour of my set. So let's see. Got me. Got the Dark Crystal here. This is the Dark Crystal floor that I copied pretty exactly from the show and movie. Inside here are the little fish and the brain coral and whatnot. You can see them. They're very simple and low poly. These are my banners. I've got this thing that could someday get like, yeah, I probably should get rid of that. Anyway, this is the power sword I made. It's based on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Red Ranger sword, but I put in some Klingon text for funsies. You can't see it in anything because it's always so far away, but who cares? This is my Lord Zed staff, my Green Ranger helmet, Star Trek The Next Generation, replicator, my Godzilla poster, the table items of the set. This is where I go. Oh, David B225 Amniotes. I really do appreciate that. That means a lot to me. What kind of fish are in the tanks as cross-platform adventures? That is a good question. I knew at one point, these are actually from like Pixabay is a fun place. Pixabay gives you copyright-free pictures that you can just download and use for whatever. Oh, and there's Mothra. We'll drink for Mothra. So what these are actually is I'll isolate one. So very, very low poly, barely 3D model of a fish that just has that flat texture pasted over it. I think it's some kind of, right, like, there's no depth to the eyes, the fins barely have any depth, and it just swims around awkwardly, but it's hard to tell how bad it. Okay, yeah, sure, it swims around inside of a little tank. Who cares? But yeah, I actually don't remember what kind of fish those are. Sorry. Oh, it's definitely a reef fish. Yeah, it's definitely a reef fish. Now, this is something that I don't think I've ever had anyone actually identify what this is. You can tell that there's a little, like, a cloth thing, but if you get in close, a procedural texture that only kind of looks like cloth, like from this distance, in the other render engine don't work as well in this render engine. But yeah, if any of you guys guess or figure out what this symbol is, I will be very impressed. Because yeah, that's not something anyone's ever really. But guys, I think that is basically it right now. I do want to say, right now, I think we are 12 members away from getting the next emoji. So if you want to help us get the next emoji, which I believe is supposed to be a get bent emoji, please do join. Let's see, David, well, you'll treat yourself to a nice whiskey for the drinking game stream. So here's the thing about that. It is if you want to make sure that I get a nice whiskey for the drinking stream, right now, I can't afford them, so I'm going to have to get a really nice whiskey. I would love to every once in a while drink a really nice whiskey. But right now, my budget this month for how much I can spend outside of like rent and bills for the whole month, including groceries that have to be taken out of this, is like maybe $200. So, unfortunately, there's only so much I can do with that, right? And it can't be a fancy whiskey, because I have to be able to afford to live. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna head. Oh, stop the playing of the thing. There's one other thing, which is that so if you go through here, you'll see that my hips and tail, as well as aspects of the neck is because of the hips and tail. But yeah, that's procedural. So that's actually essentially random based on a what do you call it? What's that kind of noise? It's not complete noise. It's I can't remember what it's called, but it's the kind of noise that moves smoothly, right? So that takes place in most like the body sway stuff. Breaks the immersion a little bit, so I have to manually fix that. That's a thing. All right, so guys, thank you very much I will talk to all of you hopefully tomorrow, because there's going to be another show tomorrow at noon. I don't think that's it, Cross-Platform Adventures, but I might be wrong, because I honestly can't remember. Alright, guys. Later.
Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Work in Progress, Bent Hovend, Cynically Skeptic, Denny52, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, McSpooks, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, and Patrick Dennis. As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance. Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if an annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.